and welcome to the Glacially Musical Podcast. It is beer, metal, and swearing. It is Nick Cameron of Glacially Musical. I am joined by the man who always brings the quality. The consistency is amazing. Quantize Chakas. How we doing today, buddy?
Quantize. I'm good, thanks.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and get to my not beer check this week because I have some amazing ice cubes.
Do you? I'm looking at the screen off to the side. What are these? I can't make it out.
It's Han Solo frozen in carbonite.
That's hilarious.
So that's what I'm pouring into this week. So
I'm
obviously we're
deeply jealous.
not drinking beers. I got little bitty ones too. Little bitty ones.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's my
little
whiskey
jealous.
drink. So,
What whiskey are you drinking, though?
because Keefy has the fancy pants Metallica whiskey, we are having a gentleman's evening. Because, and I'll get to that in a minute as to why, with whiskey. Personally, I am drinking a Cutty Sark blended Scotch whiskey Prohibition edition.
What
Oh, and it
What is
smells like
special?
Prohibition.
Smells like Prohibition. It seems like it should be a diss, but it's not. So just to set the table a little bit, yes, I do indeed have a bottle of the Metallica blackened American whiskey, which they sent to me. This is
I'm
a blended
jealous.
whiskey. They sent me a sample. Today, earlier today, as we record this, I interviewed Rob Dietrich, who is the master distiller of blackened whiskey. And we talked all, I learned a lot of stuff, whiskey facts and whiskey knowledge I did not always know. I have been a whiskey drinker most of my adult life. My dad was a whiskey drinker, and I always considered whiskey a grown man's, a grown adult's drink. Beer I had when I was like 8. I had my first beer, but whiskey I didn't drink until my 20s. And many thousands of Jack and Cokes later, I prefer just a whiskey neat. So I have been drinking this a lot this afternoon. I will do a full video review of the Black and Whiskey on the Ghost Cult YouTube soon, to go along with my cold gin that I showed last time. And Rob and I each drank together. This is not a shot whiskey, it's a sipping whiskey, by the way. I mistakenly drank like a shot of this, a $25 shot of this at somewhere the first time I ever had it. And I was like, oh, why did I do that? It's not for shots. But I think I was like, people were at the bar next to me, like, shots, shots, shots. And I was like, all right, I'll do it.
I've heard
And I was
that
like,
song.
oh, why did I do this? This is not meant to be gulped down. You can drink JMO or Jack or anything for that. But this, I was like, oh, this is a sipping whiskey. And he said there's a certain special whiskey glass you should drink your whiskey out of, but I don't have one, so I just have a little water glass here. And yeah, I've been. This is a delicious blended whiskey, blended bad reputation, no pun intended at one point. And of course, they're not only they're made in these casks of brandy so that it affects the whiskey. Then they're like pumped with sound waves of Metallica songs, personally curated by Rob and the band. And apparently, it affects the whiskey.
I am the Prohibition variety of Cutty Sark is it's got they put like all kinds of things in there because during Prohibition, booze was very dangerous, would kill you. So that's why gin became so flavorful.
Interesting.
So that's
I
why
did
there's
not
so.
know that.
I am a huge Prohibition nerd.
Are you now? Did you watch a lot of Boardwalk Empire?
No, no, I don't. I like true crime, not dramatized crime.
Fake
It's
crime.
it's, it's same with anything, but it's yeah. And St. Louis was a big part of Prohibition and all the gangsters and all that stuff. And I will just say, kids, the KKK was on the side of Prohibition. So, which side do you want to be on?
All right.
Oh, by the way, I have COVID, so we had a scare. Had to get a test yesterday for the little one, and I thought, well, what the hell? I'm here. Let me just get my no and call it a day. They're free. Well, I didn't get a no. I got a yes. So I am triple vaxxed. I am fairly careful when I go out. But
These new
that's
variants will, like, again, like, just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't get it. And exposure is, even if you, and also there are whole parts of the population who can carry it and not give it, or give it and not get it.
And I think
Similar
that's and I
to,
think that's what happened to me is I
yeah.
got a variant that was brought home because there was a bit of a sweep in my kid's school, and I think that's how I got it. And because there hasn't been any outbreaks at work, there hasn't been anything like that, and we don't really expose ourselves to other people very much, or for very because you've got to be next to somebody for 15 minutes, and we don't do that. So I'm assuming that's how I got it. For the record, my symptoms are less than mild.
I'm
The
glad. That sigh
biggest
was because I'm sad for you. So I'm glad your symptoms are not severe. I
no, it's
worry
okay.
about
It's all
you
right.
and your
I
family.
I am sad for me too. I am frustrated. I am irritated, and I am bored out of my skull because I am quarantining for real. I'm not leaving my sitting room unless I am screaming, coming out, coming out. I'm sleeping on the couch because I can't sleep in here. There's just a love seat. And I had to wait for everybody to go to bed last night. So I was really tired. So I am stir crazy. You know, what else am I doing? So, yeah,
Yeah.
cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Unlike Al Bundy, you actually love your family and you miss them. So this sucks.
I do. My wife left to go work at the old place, and she's like, "Well, it's not like we can watch TV as a family now, is it?" Well, no, no, it is not. You have a good day. What the hell
You
else can
have
I
a
say?
good day.
She worked from
That was
home
like a
today.
bless your heart almost.
I'm like, I don't blame you. Have a good day. I'm just gonna sit here wishing I wasn't here.
Right. I get it, bro. I
But
get it.
on
That
to
sucks.
happier things. Hopefully, I noticed last week in the episode I felt like I had too much reverb, so I put my kiss blanket over the desk I'm sitting at. So hopefully, I did some tests before recording. So hopefully that sounds better. If it doesn't, I apologize, and I will continue working on it.
Maybe you can hang a blanket or a curtain over that door. That would probably suck up the sound behind you. So that's probably what's happening. Your voice is pinging around the room. When you sit in that
Ooh,
corner of the room, you didn't have any when you sat in front of the records. So
yeah.
they probably the paper of the sleeves was absorbing sound in that
Mm,
whole wall, and now we're in this kind of corner. So you're just physics. You're in the corner,
right.
and you have a window and a door behind you that are glass surfaces. So this is why
Mm,
you're not getting any dampening.
okay,
Just
that's
my
good
two
to know.
cents. I'm not an expert about this. I'm an expert about other things, but
Well,
not
before we record the next episode, I'll stick a hockey jersey in front of that window
maybe
back
see what
there.
happens.
Just I'll try
It's
any little thing I can do.
science.
But let's get on to happier things with the vinyl check. You want to go first this week?
I will go first this week. Thank you. I have several vinyls. Things are coming in, and I'm excited about them. I have the first thing today is the Spirit Adrift Forge Your Future EP.
Very nice.
Spirit Adrift has kind of made the jump from stoner doom to kind of a more traditional heavy metal, and
Hmm.
I'm here for it. And this was a pre-order that came in, and I think I'm not sure if it's on a plain or a fancy vinyl. It looks like it's on a fancy vinyl. I don't recall. It's a little dusty right out of the sleeve here, but it's on one side of a black vinyl, but the other side has an etching, and I don't know if viewers at home can make that out.
Yeah, I can see that.
But that's a cool etching of the artwork from the cover.
Very cool.
I'm a big fan of Spirit Adrift. I have a second vinyl for the check-in today as well. And when you do yours, I'll put my stuff away. I got my still getting the Gimme Metal subscription club for vinyl,
Every
and
month, every time you say that, I think to myself, "Damn, I need to do that," and then I don't.
I don't love all of them. And you can skip a month or whatever. But I got this one I particularly like. Sometimes I wonder like I should have muted this month or skipped a month, and so I get things I don't care for that much. But I love this record. This is Horrendous Anaretta, the death metal band.
Oh, I love that album.
First of all, gorgeous, fantastic artwork.
That
Oh
was
my,
why, I saw that this month, and I'm like, I
Nightmare,
need to do
Hellscape.
it. Those deathy Italians are amazing.
Yeah, they are really great, and I
I
think this
reviewed
is
that record when it was new.
nice. And so yeah, now it's repressed on this fancy. I'm gonna pull it out. Splatter pattern. This little tie dye thing, and I rather like this guy. This is sounds great, looks great. I've already played it,
Oh,
and it's like a little see through also, so
yeah.
I like it.
Splatter looks the best when it's on clear or translucent.
Or very light, like a light yellow or a light green.
Yeah, it's a.
Not a yeah.
Although I'll say that I kind of feel like Splatter is a little played out right now because
Yeah,
I
I
feel
understand.
like we've done all of them, so let's move on into other things. And it's like fashion, man. You it's like the joke Jerry Seinfeld made about women's fashion is they keep changing what they cover up and uncover to confuse men. So just do that. Just
Smart.
we've had a lot of splatter. Let's go to swirl. We've had a lot of swirl. Let's go to half and half.
The horrendous, by the way, is about $25, which is the monthly Gimme Metal
Mm-hmm.
price plus shipping. It does this. This also comes with a lyric sheet. At one point, they were also giving you like an enamel pin with your Gimme Metal vinyls, but they haven't been doing too many of those. You can still buy those at the Gimme Metal store, and hopefully, Ghost Cult will have another show hosted on Gimme Metal later this year.
Very cool. I will do my vinyl check this week.
You go ahead.
I got three. I'm going to start off with the Rolling Stones Aftermath. I am not really a fan of the Stones to speak of, but I decided I've got one album. I've got Beggar's Banquet. I got a Beggar's Banquet pressing, which obviously has Sympathy for the Devil and a lot of those cool Stones tunes. And something came up, and somebody at work was singing "Paint It Black," and I don't know. I decided at that moment I needed to do more with the Stones. It's also this is a used copy. It's an original era pressing anyway. It's on London Stereophonic Records, and it's in really good shape. I actually have not cleaned or spun this one yet because it just came on Wednesday or Thursday, I believe. I'll get to it soon because I want to hear it. Now, last week, as I mentioned, that I had a funeral. I had my aunt's funeral last week. So after all of that was done, I went, as Penny Lane says in Almost Famous, whenever you feel lonely, go to the record store and visit your friends. So that's what I did. I went to Vintage Vinyl in University City, which is a suburb of St. Louis, right outside of the city. And really cool little. There's a place called the Loop, which is where the trolleys used to loop. They used to be where they would turn around, the U City Loop. So that's where Vintage Vinyl is. It's been there for almost 50 years, along with a lot of other really cool stuff. Our oldest movie theater that actually closed recently, and all kinds of cool stuff. So Vintage Vinyl is also probably the biggest, well, it's definitely the biggest record store in St. Louis. It is ginormous. It is freaking huge, which is why I don't typically go there very often because choice paralysis. We have a lot of little record stores, and I can go through an entire little record store in the same time it takes me to go through one section of vintage vinyl. But I did some poking. I'm glad I poked as hard as I did. First thing I came out with was this one. Sepultura and Tambours de Bronx Metal Veins live at Rock in Rio. This is 2014 Sepultura performing with a percussion band. It's on white and red. It's a nice gatefold for the gatefold people, which I am not one. Oh, the Rolling Stones album, I think I got that for about $12 delivered. Now this one, I was actually very surprised at the pricing on this. This is a European pressing, German, I believe it is. I got this for $22, and it's a double. It's got a lot of the really cool classic stuff, a lot of the later stuff. Very cool record. Very cool record. I didn't know that one was even pressed. I remember reviewing that obviously in 2014, so forever ago. And I listened to that on my computer. I had to download it to my computer because they didn't have Wi-Fi then. I reviewed it so long ago. It was before a fast food place didn't. No, I was at Wendy's, not Lion's Choice. Before all restaurants had Wi-Fi, and I had to type it up on MS Word and then transfer it into the website and reformat it because Word to Blogger for some reason is just a big middle finger, and I have not figured that out yet. But so very cool to get that, and great live set. So that is the second Rock in Rio live album I now have. The other one being, of course, Iron Maiden. Oh, let me have a sip of that. Whew, that is rough. That's Prohibition whiskey. Prohibition whiskey is not your smooth sipping whiskey. You don't drink this straight. Nobody, you can't, because it will kill you and ruin you. So the other thing I got this week, big John 5 fan. I got in on his solo records around the time of God Told Me To, which is an exceptional album of his. But came across a copy of Sinner, also at Vintage Vinyl. Picked them both up. This one is on nice yellow pressing. Mustard yellow is perfect for spinning records, if you ask me. Again, gatefold, if you dig the gatefolds. I don't see the point of the gatefolds, but you know what? Whatever. Other people like them, so I'm not going to yuck on anybody else's yum. I listened to this one and Sepultura? Both of these great records, and these are easy to come by. So do not sleep on these. I'll say that much.
Nick is crossing a lot of my Venn diagram stuff this week. I saw Sepultura last week. I saw John 5 the other night.
I have never seen Sepultura.
Oh no! Well, when they come back, you definitely should go. As I said, because their drummer was injured, I got to hear a very old school set, which was wonderful. John 5 just saw the other night around the corner from my house at DNA Lounge. He's terrific. If he's coming to your town, let me know. I can help arrange that.
St. Louis on this tour.
God dang it!
I've seen him a couple times.
He puts on a really great show, and a very visually striking show. It's kind of like just a not. Just a small club version of the visuals you might get from Rob Zombie, complete with a giant John 5 guy that comes out in a giant 10-foot John 5 creature outfit and mask and terrorizes the crowd like an Eddie.
He also busts out an array of Eastern European acoustic instruments.
Not this time.
To wail.
Not this time.
What I got when I saw him.
He did. He had his typical Fender Teles, Telecasters. He had a baby Fender, kind of weird 4-string guitar, not an electric uke, but a weird 4-string guitar. He also played his he opened the show with his see-through liquid guitar. It's like a plasma inside the guitar that he plays with a bow.
One like that too.
That he plays with a bow, and like Jimmy Page, and he did a bunch of covers. At the end, he's recording for a live record on this tour, and the opening support was the Haxons, which features Piggy D, his brother from
another live record.
That's like his thing now, is to do a record and a live album and a record and a live record. So he's
the Iron Maiden strategy.
The Iron Maiden way.
Love it. On this album, it's got a bunch of covers, and it's also got Peter Criss on it.
No way.
Peter Criss on Georgia on my
Yes, that's right. Actually, I know he did, because I asked him about. I interviewed him. You can watch my interview with John 5 also on YouTube this week, and he talked about Peter, and I was kind of like, I had sort of only half listened to the record, and they rushed me into the interview with him quickly, and I was like, oh, I love that Peter is on here. He's like, Peter's a personal friend of mine. I was like, what? How?
Yeah, whenever Rob Zombie goes to plays in Jersey now, they always bring up Peter Criss play too.
That's funny.
So, more power to them. Hope they're happy. But I think we have stuttered and stammered on enough. What are we talking about this week?
We are going to conclude our series on Thin Lizzy, although Thin Lizzy has many more albums than we're going to talk about. There's just not enough time in the podcast to cover these all. So we're going to.
It would be a Thin Lizzy podcast if we covered all of them. And I am disappointed because we don't have time to get to the next one, Black Rose.
Yeah, I mean, I love, we're not going to really, talk about Live and Dangerous. We're not going to talk about Black Rose. We're not going to talk about Chinatown. These are brilliant records. And then there's their final record, which is Thunder and Lightning, has a certain place in the heart of metalheads because it's a little step toward new wave of heavy metal They embraced a lot of that stuff, in the wake of Maiden and Motorhead and Priest
Well, that's
and
that's pretty meta. They influence Maiden, and then Maiden influences them,
right.
and then
But
unfortunately we lose Phil. But I think this is a good. It was my choice to stop here because I feel like this is the perfect stopping point because this is the end of the classic run. This is after this one, the band. The next record has Gary Moore on it, so it's not the same band. But
so so we're gonna do Bad Reputation, and just to follow up. So we talked about Jailbreak, which is their huge hit record. It's the record everyone has. It's the record everyone knows. Um, and Johnny the Fox, which is arguably their second best record,
great record.
is incredible. Mostly, at least an 8, arguably a 9 in places. Certainly top tier, right behind Jailbreak. Not doesn't have the hits, but all the songs are high quality. All the playing, singing, writing,
That
fantastic.
that album, I think, exemplifies the whole reason why you chose this series. If this is the first of the Thin Lizzy series you're checking in, this is the last episode of Thin Lizzy. This is our 5th episode, which is longer than we typically go on a band. We usually go 4.
Right.
But Thin Lizzy was chosen by Keefy because he felt they are criminally underrated in this country.
I think they're criminally underrated in general. I just think it's
Fair
a
enough.
shame that they don't have the they are not top of mind to a lot of people like they should be. When you reel off the classic rock era of bands that have
They
a
don't come
lasting
up.
they don't come up often enough. They come up, but not often enough for me. And so that was the genesis of this. And, I think so far, even though we haven't finished the last episode, no regrets. This is a very good series.
I agree.
I feel like I think we've done justice to the man and the band. Just to continue setting the scene for a second before we go into the track by track. So we talked about last time. Uh, they write Johnny the Fox after Philo had been contracted hepatitis and was in. So basically, Jailbreak comes out. They open for Queen in stadiums. They're getting ready to come back and do their own headline tour, which means money and sales
So much
and
money.
merch. And Philo gets hepatitis, whatever, and he's bedridden at the time. Like normally now, if you got hepatitis from something, you could be out of the hospital in a few weeks. He was in the hospital for 6 or 7 months. During that period of time, he wrote all of Chinatown. I'm sorry, all of that time he wrote Johnny the Fox, which is a concept record. He wrote most of it, like 80% of the record himself, which is why it doesn't sound like the other records. He comes in, they go to the studio, they bang it out quick. They're getting ready to go on tour, and Brian Robertson gets in a bar fight defending a friend of his and gets his hand cut open, which requires major surgery on his guitar hand. He does not come on tour. Gary Moore goes on tour with the band, sowing the seeds of Gary Moore coming back in later. He had already been on a Thin Lizzy record, Gary Moore. It's then time to go back and make the next record because
So,
record tour. That's what everybody did back
right.
then.
I'm just going to go back and point out something I said last week. How often is it when somebody misses a tour that they come back on the next record? How often is their spot still their spot?
Mm,
Not often. It's just usually if you miss a tour, you become an anchor.
right. Yeah. But so not only did he miss a tour, he wasn't ready to make the next record. He wasn't really ready. So they started writing the record without him and went into record without him. And Philo felt that Scott, being a legend that he is, could handle all the guitar by himself. But Scott's songs that he writes are specifically geared toward two guitar bands. They started writing in that style as soon as Scott came in the band, influenced by Whiskey in the Jar, the single, and the Fightin' record and the record before it. They started writing in that style, which is the iconic twin guitar sound that you know Thin Lizzy for. So they basically make this record, and toward the end of the record, Brian comes in and lays down a few solos. He does recover in time to go tour with them after, which we'll get to.
Scott actually was the one that fought to have him on there.
Yeah, because Phil was like, "Nah, we don't need." I'm sure like there was already acrimony. Like this guy's cost us him, he's cost himself money, he's cost us money, and maybe we don't need him. But I really think the power of Thin Lizzy is not as a trio; it's a four-piece band.
I completely agree. The idea of Thin Lizzy as a trio is not right. It's kind of like Iron Maiden without two guitar players.
Well, we know
But
they don't
yeah.
need
So
three, but that's another conversation we had at infinitum during the Maiden
we
series.
already did the Maiden series.
We already did. But
So, so
anywho,
but so Scott actually wrote three songs on purpose in order to have Brian on there, and one of them he wouldn't even put the solo down.
no,
Then so Brian then joins them in Toronto and is angry at them, won't talk to them, won't even socialize with them
right.
until eventually he breaks. He's like, yeah, we're fine, we're fine. And
I also want to mention that this is the first record they worked with an actual. Let's say all the Thin Lizzy records are well produced. You know, maybe they don't always have the best songs. None of them sound bad. This is a coup. So this is their seventh record, right? Seventh record, and eighth. I'm sorry. So this is their eighth record, and this is the first time they work with a name producer, somebody a huge name producer, Tony Visconti, who has produced everybody from Bowie to Wings to everybody, and still a legendary person to this day. And so this is the first time they actually like could technically co-produced by Thin Lizzy and Tony Visconti, but like that's insane that it took them eight records and they already had like a hit record and a very good selling follow up, and then they were afforded a legendary producer.
it seems like after the Whiskey in the Jar single that somebody would have showed up.
Yeah, to me, but again, the record label maybe they lost money for a long time for that band for that label, and that could be the cause. Um, but yeah, who knows? I don't know if you have any further thoughts on Bad Reputation before we do the track by track, but
No, I think I've gotten everything I wanted to get out. It's
yeah, and yeah, I mean, I'm glad both Brian's are on this
oh,
record.
we didn't talk about the cover.
We didn't talk about the cover,
We should talk about the cover.
so yeah, go ahead. There's three guys on the cover.
You said go ahead, then you started talking.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I
I
was
am
just
drinking
waiting.
whiskey.
I was just waiting to make sure that there wasn't a follow up to yourself.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a whiskey show, so it's a little bit different. Sorry, everybody. If you're not watching this on YouTube, now's a great time. It has gotten weird. Oh, I'm gonna just cover the screen a little bit. So the cover of this album is Thin Lizzy. Does not have the iconic logo, as Keefy likes to point out with every album that doesn't have it. Thin Lizzy, a lot like Black Sabbath, chose to revamp their logo I guess just revamp the stylization of their name every album because they really don't have a logo. This is Thin Lizzy is in that classic, military spray paint font. And then Bad Reputation as well. It is a black and white cover. The only cover color is the title Bad Reputation. Under one, two, three members of the band, not four. The cover was designed during their time as a trio. Excuse me, the whiskey's coming up. Designed during their time as a trio, and Phil decided to kind of show off their trio and that they're not being held back by one less dude. However, if you open up the gatefold, you'll see that dude.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is fair. I wonder if weirdly this cover influenced the future Motorhead cover. I think On Parole has a similar cover, which was released much later, but was recorded around the same time. They were friends. They played together. They toured together a little bit. So no doubt that Lemmy knew Phil and the guys, and the other Motorhead guys. I know Lemmy is the one with the reputation of being God. Lemmy is God. Trick question. But those other guys, especially the early Motorhead guys, were like ragers, straight up frickin' ragers, like Lemmy. So I wonder if there wasn't some, some stories out there we don't know about.
Well, this album, I mean, the album cover, I'm not going to call it a extraordinarily original or striking cover, though it may very well have been the first one like this, because if you talk about the history of recorded music, it's only 1 century, give or take, in 60 million years of humanity. And if you talk about rock and roll and non-classical uh, music, we're only looking at 60 years out of 60 million years of human history. So it's a very short time. So this may very well could have been the first one. But I am sure that this is an album cover that did definitely do a lot more. The pictures of their faces is the Black Album's portraits remind me of this, except this is theirs was more of the negative rather than positive is not the right word. It light and dark. These are white faces, black hair, whereas the Metallica ones were gray faces on black. So, but
Right.
it's
And
a
I got to
similar
see
concept.
those original Black Album photos and proofs and everything during
Oh
the
Jesus, we can't go a
Metallica.
week, can we?
We can't. We
I mean,
can't
I
go a week.
started it, so
I mean, we did talk about the whiskey already, so I mean, like technically,
I guess the floodgates were open. You started it.
floodgates are open. Sorry, everybody. Um,
Lars is a big fan.
huge, huge fan, and yeah, directly influenced the band. So yeah, man. Let's do the track by track. I can lead the way as I have been doing, if you like.
Go ahead, or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the record begins with the solo fill
I'm
composition.
sorry. I'm gonna do what you did to me. Go ahead. Wait. Just want to point out again, this is another 36-minute album. They seem to be really rolling in that number, and it's odd to me that they've had so many albums in a row at 36 minutes.
It's just their sweet spot. 8 or 9 songs in about 35, 36 minutes every time.
Right? They write 3 to 5 minute tracks. They're not progressive. They're not poppy. They're not punk. Right in that radio sweet spot, which is what makes it even weirder.
Right. Um, so, if I may,
You may.
the album kicks off with Soldier of Fortune, not that other Soldier of Fortune song you're thinking of, but Soldier of Fortune, a great album opener, fantastic guitar, and almost a Zeppelin y kind of tune in that 3 quarters of the way through, it kind of shifts a little bit and becomes this like very interesting musical thing without verses or choruses anymore. Like an extended, not quite a solo, but like a whole band musical motif.
Agreed.
And
And
just a wonderful album opener.
when it comes back to Soldier of Fortune from that motif, the change is so significant. It's a little bit jarring when Phil comes back to Soldier of Fortune. What was he fighting for? I feel like this song was a little bit was is another autobiographical song. I don't really get the impression that Phil could write a whole lot that he didn't know. I
Mm,
would obviously I would say it's allegorical, but when you consider the last two tours where shit happened, and it's got to feel like they're fighting for every step of the way, only to be beaten down and not even really make that much money for it. It probably felt a lot like that when it rolled around.
mm. Indeed, indeed. Well
Great song,
said.
great song.
Great song, though. Great song, great opener. Bad Reputation, the title track is next. One of the raginest, rippinest songs ever by the band. There's 2 singles on this record that actually charted after a record that was a great record, but a concept record, not really radio friendly. This was a much more, Bad Reputation's like it's heavy, it's brooding, it's got riffs, it's muscular, and then it's got like this glorious melodic key change guitar solo, twin guitar harmony thing that is just absolutely baller.
Hmm. Another great song. The I will say this, and I will only say this about the lyrics. They're a little dated. If you go back to what the Plastic Rock guys were singing about, and what Ace Frehley continues to sing about, it is not necessarily a an enlightened view of the world and of the opposite sex. And this one feels a little bit like that, but it also could be him singing to himself in a mirror. And Keefy's lights have gone out. I'm gonna keep talking while he's dark and freaky.
Oh, what a day! It's a day where technology has not been cooperating with me.
Hey,
So
every day. The thing about technology is when it works, it's the greatest thing in the world, and it makes us need it. And when it doesn't, it's a kick in the dick, and it says, "Who's your daddy? I'm your daddy. Technology is your daddy. You know I
true
am."
that.
It says
You talk about Opium Trail while I fix my light.
Opium Trail, another great song, and I feel again we were talking about probably something slightly autobiographical. When you get on the road, the drugs are everywhere, and it's got to feel. I especially in the '70s, I can't imagine it not feeling like an opium den. I mean, I've read the books that people like Aerosmith and Alice Cooper have written, and when they talk about the amount of illicit substances that are just everywhere, a little creepy. And again, another time where maybe the lyrics are a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we wouldn't use those words now in 2022. But it's not something I'm gonna go. I'm gonna look back on 45 years in the past and go, "Oh, you should have known better." It was 45 years in the past. You know, when I was growing up learning about the civil rights, it wasn't even 45 years old at that point. So just to kind of throw a little bit of perspective there. Another great song. And it's these songs are a lot slower in feel. Maybe they're not, BPM is a little bit, but they don't have that gallop, that swaggery gallop of Thin Lizzy at this point. And it really doesn't ever come up on this whole record, which is fine
Well,
because
Bad
this is
Reputation has a definite like a riffy gallop to it, but overall, those like, again, I feel like almost Jailbreak set the bar so high, and there's several of those songs with that throbbing, riding beat and pedaling bass and guitar. And this record's, this is a much more song. They're in a more song orientated band now, and they don't have to rely on like, oh, a great riff, let's run it into the ground. They're able to do, they're able to change keys, and they're able to do, different, shifting motifs and
the
time
thing about
signatures.
music is if you're an athlete and you hit a home run to center field, if you're a baseball player, if you're as it were, you can keep hitting home runs to center field and everybody's going to be happy. But if you keep writing the same song over and over, people aren't going to be happy. They were never going to write a song as good as Jailbreak. They were never going to do twin guitar harmony parts as good as The Boys Are Back in Town. They moved away from it.
That's
Okay.
fair. That's not unfair. Um, Side one closes out with Southbound, which is, pretty good. I wouldn't say it's great. It's a good track. Got some
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
got a little R&B flavor to it, a little in the singing and the changes, and it's a little soulful and a little doleful. So it kind of brings the energy down for me a little bit after Bad Reputation and Opium Trail, or like have fervor.
Opium Trail has a lot of tension to it, which is why it works so well for me. Southbound feel sounds like a hit song. It's the first three songs they've actually kind of said something, and then Southbound really doesn't say anything. It's is it a bad song? No, but the three that preceded it were amazing tracks, and this is the I would have switched Opium Trail and this one in the sequencing just to kind of hide it a little bit. It's you got to start strong, you got to finish strong, just like comedy.
There you
And
go. And
back in
sports,
these
you got to be a finisher.
right, and back in these days, you had to start twice and you had to finish twice. You had side
Uh,
one and side two.
Super true. Flip the record and put on side two, and start with another exceptional hit song, "Dancing in the Moonlight." It's caught me in its spotlight. Phenomenal song, super catchy, very 70s, very retro. Still holds up though, but it's got that classic, just a vibe that is undeniable. Um, Maybe it was meant to be a hit, and it is. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know if it's that contrived. I don't think so. I don't think anything this guy did was. I think in his heart he wanted them to be a bigger band than they were, but he wanted it to come naturally. But this is just an amazing amazing rock song.
You're not going to hear me complain about somebody wanting to be popular, wanting to be comfortable, wanting to be set based on writing a song or singing a song or fiddling around on the four stringer. So a little bit of hit fishing, that's one thing. But when he tries to write a pop song, he fails in a glorious way, in a spectacular way. Dancing in the Moonlight, it's caught me in the spotlight. If you look at the lyrics, it's very happy. It's very chill. I mean, this is the kind of thing that a high school cover band could easily play on a loop for a graduation. They could be that band in Almost Famous playing this song over and over. But when I hear Phil Lynott sing it, it's very different. So, is it a pop song? Uh-huh. Is it a good pop song? Oh yeah. Is it poppy? Oh hell no. It's very anxious. It's very tense. It's worried, and that's why I love this song.
Nice. I want to mention that there's one thing I didn't say that there is in this song has very unique to this one song out of the whole band's catalog is there's a call and response vocal part in the chorus. So there's the whole band singing a chorus part, and then Phil is singing in response lead against the chorus part, which is very unique for this band. Was hugely copied by a lot of bands. We did the Quiet Riot series. This is where this kind of probably came from. I'm sure it's like a Beach Boys thing, or somebody else did it first. But I'm not saying they innovated it, but it's great and it's very singular in their whole history that there's this kind of song with
Hey,
this kind of chorus.
it's okay if they didn't innovate it or create it. It's like Hooper X said, man. Everybody wants to think they're Marco fucking Polo.
Pulling out the references. Oh my goodness, chasing Amy in the house.
Hey,
Um,
or no, that was chasing Amy line. Oh no,
what's a
honey,
Nubian?
bitch, you almost made me laugh.
Anyway,
No, oh honey, I don't hear you complaining nightly. That's from Jam Bob Strike Back.
yes,
Oh
uh,
god, Hooper X needs a movie.
that he's an incredible. He writes and directs now, and
Oh, he does.
yeah, he's quite esteemed, and would love to see him. If there's a justice in this world, it would be cool to see him come back to the View Askew universe in Clerks 3, which we also talk about every episode, just about. And
That's because we are men of a certain age,
we are men
and
of us, the Kevin Smith generation. He speaks for
correct.
us and
And
speaks to us.
Clerks. I mean, that was my that I was a slacker like them at that time.
Yeah,
I was
well,
Dante, and
I
I
still
admit
am.
that.
I need to shit or get off the pot. I don't know how.
I still can't shake it off the pot. I will just ride the train. Just where look, I don't know where this train's going, but I'm already on it, and I know the chair is comfortable, so I'm fine.
It's going somewhere.
I shit my pants.
Right. Rather than shit uncomfortably, I shit
No,
my pants.
I'm not willing to change my situation just to shit
Shit
comfortably.
comfortably. Anywho, moving
Anywho,
on.
sorry, I have
Tracks.
nothing to say about this next song. So
Okay, yeah, well, this next song, Killer Without a Cause, is obviously a spoof or parody of Devil Without a Cause, and but it's a
ooh,
pretty
there's a lot
cool.
of those.
Yeah, it's a good track. Again, similar to Southbound, it's good. I don't think it's exceptional, but it's not filler either. It's a pretty solid song just generally, and I'm gonna see if my screen kind of blocked here. So this is a Gorham and Lynette, and this is I think one of the ones that Robertson is on. So this is one of the ones where he gets to kind of let loose a little.
Let me see here. It doesn't say. Oh, 3, 6, and 8. What are we on? We are on
Six.
6. Yes.
Yeah. Um, and then so, for no particular reason at all, it's a track time of 333. But yeah, man, it's a good song. Again, against Bad Reputation and Dancing in the Moonlight, it's unfortunate, but they can't all be winners and bangers. Much
Well,
better is
and I
the
think they put that one in the right place.
yeah, toward the end. much better and definitely a step up, and probably the most underrated song on the whole album is probably Downtown Sundown. This is a very definitely got me in my feels. Beautiful, beautiful lyrics, really well sung by Philo, and again, man, if you leave this guy to his devices, he's a poet and a storyteller above all things.
And he sings and plays with such conviction. You know, it's like he's like King Diamond, except really good in terms of he acts out the songs when he sings them. And
He is getting into a character every single song.
correct. And that's I don't know why, but that's not normal in this genre in our chosen genres of music, you know, in the guitar music where and I don't know why that is because that's what music has always been. Music has always been about telling stories when you go back. I mean, telling stories, telling the news, or sending messages. So of course you're going to be in character. And he goes into character and he goes deeply in and he goes convincingly in. And I love that.
Word. Nicely done. Winding down the album, That Woman's Gonna Break Your Heart is the penultimate track, track 8. Another love song. We get a lot of these broken-hearted songs from Phil over time. Um, a little rock, a little R&B, a little heartache. Stir,
Yeah,
rinse,
and
repeat.
this song is the one that Scott Gorham did not even record a solo. He just didn't punch in for it. He's like, we need Brian back on this one, and this song is what got Brian Downey back on this record and back on the tour.
Oh, not Downey, Robertson.
Robertson, oh
Downey's the
balls.
drummer.
I apologize. Too
That's
many
okay.
Brian's, too many Brian's, too many
I
good stories.
interviewed a band today with 3 Kyles, and I went hard on the Kyle puns, and this guy was a champ because I was just like Kyle this and Kyle that, and he's like, we just call each other by last names and don't even say Kyle. I was like, is it kind of like you guys are the living Spider-Man meme? Hey Kyle. So, yeah, there's too many
Ah,
Brians in this band, but not for long after this album is over. Hi. Anyway, bada bing. Closing out the album with Dear Lord, another pensive, philosophical, what am I doing with my life? What's the future look like? What are my hopes and dreams? Am I going to live? I don't know. He is very, I wouldn't say religious, but spiritual, probably, right? He sings about God quite often. There's lyrics about God on every album, mentions of God, mentions of the afterlife and what happens when I'm gone. And he did tragically die young as we close this series out. I'm sure we're going to mention that he would pass away less than 10 years after this album came out. So, very, I'm sure when he made this record, he didn't think his life was going to end so soon.
agreed. And this is another one of the when I wish you wouldn't say all the cool things and leave me some cool things to say, but you didn't. I definitely think that he always hoped for something that was bigger than himself in terms of spirituality and the afterlife and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me, because he routinely sang about it. And he routinely, I would say, ruminated on it and considered it, as I think many of us do that don't follow an organized religion, and because we don't have the conditioning to go, this is real, this is real, this is real. And on top of that, we're talking about a person who did tragically die young. I know Keefy already said it, but I've already got that information up on my screen. He died basically on Christmas 1985, and so not even 8 years after this album,
Mm.
he dies.
Um, yeah, it's a tragedy. I feel very lucky that we got the music we got. Uh, I don't know if you'll allow me like 2 minutes to give the fast forward on the rest of their career as a band,
Go
but
ahead, and then I'll wrap up a little
so they
bit
go
more
on
on.
tour with Brian briefly for part of it, and some of that material ends up on Live and Dangerous, which is probably their third or fourth best known album because it's a live album and it is the era of live albums, and a
It's
live
the one I
albums where
have,
you get the greatest hits collection usually is on a good live album.
and I'm glad we're not really going over it because there's a lot of questions about how live is
Yeah,
it. It's
and
good. Don't
that's
get me
for a lot.
wrong, but
Yeah, there it's sort of live, and it's a
right,
Kiss live.
it's a '70s live album,
It's a Kiss live. It's not a
right?
somebody else, and so not the Deep Purple or Yes, but or Rush, but
I
I
listened
give
to
them.
Yes today.
I heard that. I give them a lot of credit. So they come out, they do a full proper world tour, as much as they could for this. Live and Dangerous comes out. They come right back in the next couple of years with two back to back absolute bangers, and I highly recommend anybody. You literally have the Keith guarantee, the Keefy seal of approval. Go out and buy Black Rose. Go out and buy Chinatown. Go buy them on vinyl. You will love these records. If you've appreciated, especially these last few records we've talked about, those two are as good as this record. I think this is probably their second or third best record, depending on who you talk to. I think there's a charm about Johnny the Fox that doesn't get talked enough about. We talked about it last week, but even though it doesn't have the hits, it's better made and better because it was just Phil mostly. It's just got something about it that the other records don't have because it's mostly him. And this record has more hits and more known songs, but I think that record is better. And then those other two, like I said, Black Rose and Chinatown, are brilliant. And then if you are just strictly a heavy metal person listening to this, you probably need to have Thunder and Lightning. It was a huge favorite of Pantera, of Diamond Darrell, Dimebag. Loved that record. Uh, and directly influenced a lot of rock and heavy metal that came after it. And Phil had an okay solo career, a couple of charting songs as a solo artist, sort of pop rock vein, similar to a Phil Collins, his buddy. And but just didn't really. He had another band called Grand Slam. If you're really a completist and you want to find that band out, that's more of like a funk R&B, hard R&B band, like a little bit bridging R&B and rock in an interesting way, like a Rick James or Prince. Um, and so, yeah, just, there's a lot of great music out there. We didn't get to cover it all, but we covered what I consider to be the essential heart of it. And I'm thankful for Nik for humoring me with this choice. And again, I think this is worth owning most of these records, especially the arc of the ones we did. They're all buys for me. I would have them all if given my druthers.
I am looking at a picture of Phil in what I believe to be uh, Grand Slam, and oh my lord, that's something.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of all I've got on this. I know this is a little shorter than we normally do, but I
It's
don't
a little
really.
shorter because we did 5 albums on this one, and
Yeah, we need. And then
we did 5 shows on 5 albums. So
yeah,
when that
I will. Yeah,
what
it's enough. It's enough. We
agreed,
did how many Maiden records? Like 10 Maiden records roughly,
right?
and how many Metallica records? Like 7 or 8 Metallica records
No, we
in
did
that run.
7 or 8 Metallica double records.
Yeah, that too. Um,
It's easier for me to do those when they're albums I've heard a
a
million
million times.
times.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope this was fun for you and not a chore. We've had a
Oh no,
couple of
totally fine.
series that felt like chores to us, so I hope that they were hopefully at least entertaining while we suffered. This I think was a treat, and I
Are you
hope
talking
wasn't a
about Black
chore.
Sabbath Technical Ecstasy? Because I've got a vinyl that I'll send you if you want it.
Yeah, well, I have to send you my extra Metal Massacre record, so we'll share addresses soon. Um, again, I really hope people check out this band much more. They have an army of fans. They have an army of lovers. An army of children have been born to some of these songs. I know the hits are repetitive and beat to death by rock radio and satellite radio, but like really dig deep, get these other records, really spend some time with them. This record, Johnny the Fox, they're well known, they're well received, they're well liked, but maybe they're just not as pervasive as the big hit songs like Whiskey in the Jar and Boys Are Back in Town. But there's more to life than the hits.
It's amazing how different Thin Lizzy really is from what I thought they were. When you hear Whiskey in the Jar, Emerald, Jailbreak, yada yada yada, Boys Are Back in Town, it conjured up a very particular kind of image for me of who they were, what they were about, and what I learned from this series is they were a very different band than that. They were a band that just kind of followed the ebbs and flows of the inspiration of Phil Lynott, and that inspiration took him in a lot of different places, and it's really cool. It was really cool for me to go through these albums and to really give them a critical look. You know, I've got Jailbreak, which is just something that's in my iTunes. I've never given it a real strong kind of look or anything like that. But you know, it's a lot of it was a lot of fun going through this, and you know, I had had some Thin Lizzy on my want list for a while now, and I'm definitely gonna go ahead and put those into the shopping cart. But for this week, you know, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for checking in with us. If you have made it this far, you are kings and queens among men, princes of the night, princesses of the dawn. I was trying to do something cool. Didn't work out, and I don't edit. But thank you very much for checking us out. If you could, you can follow Keefy at Ghost Cult Mag or at Ghost Cult Keefy on Twitter. You can follow myself at Nik No C Nik underscore No underscore C or glacially underscore musical on Instagram. If you could just like this video, I want to give a special shout out to the gentleman Arthur Fonzarelli who commented on my receding hairline last week. So hopefully he's still watching. Yes, I have a spectacular receding hairline. I got a bald spot in the back, but you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. I'm old. I'm old and I earned it. So I also show my face there, Fonz. Just going to point out you're not. But that is all I have for this week. Anything else, Keefy?
I got nothing.
Alrighty, I like leaving Keefy speechless. This is the Glacially Musical Podcast. It doesn't play in Peoria.
Philo.